kicked off, I mean, I'd love to just start, Robert, with a chance for you to introduce yourself to the audience, give them a sense of, who you are, what you work on, and, what your sort of introduction to the brave new world of large language models and artificial intelligence, like how that all began.
Yes. So how it all began is one question, but I'll just start with who I am. So I'm Robert Mitchell. I'm the Chief AI Officer for WSI. I have several roles that I have in that title. And the title really helps you understand that I work with clients individually to help them navigate in introducing and implementing AI across their organization. And so we have a roadmap that I created with our team to help deliver that solution to a client. And I particularly focus on the franchise industry because that's what I've been doing for 20 plus years, 23 years. So that's where I focus. But we've developed this model to be used for any industry. So the second part of my role is to help those individuals in our network, because we have several hundred across the globe. We've been in digital marketing for over 30 years and been one of the largest network of digital marketing agencies in the world. And we've recently, 3 years ago, integrated AI consulting into that framework. So that's one more arrow in the quiver, if you were to say it that way, that our owners can deploy when working with their clients. So I help those owners with their clients, and they're prolific. It's banking, it's manufacturing, it's healthcare, it's financial, you name it. We're helping navigate that solution. The beauty of what we're doing, Ravin, is we're not doing enterprise. And so Boston Consulting and PwC, they got that locked down, right? Starting with 6 zeros. So we don't typically do that. We're much more in the SMB space, medium businesses, large. And so we're allowing those businesses to kind of slowly cream to the top and give those enterprises a run for their money. Because as you know, it's easier to turn a tugboat than it is to turn a cruise ship, right? And so that's what we're helping those owners do.
Makes so much sense. One of the things I always find interesting about this is I feel like if you speak to 100 people about the definition of what's an enterprise, you get somehow 101 different responses. So curious what it means to you. How do you distinguish between the upper end of SMB and the lower end of enterprise?
Oh, you're right. There is a cap there. I think that if you can't get the CEO and founder on the phone, then it's enterprise.
Okay, cool.
I mean, there's a lot of BSGs that can get those people on the phone, but I think that the approachability of those medium and large businesses. Right. I work with those people all the time. Enterprise has a lot of layers, a lot of departmentalization of the different roles, and so a lot of the time we work with enterprise, but maybe only the marketing team or only the sales team or only the logistics and transportation side. So that's the difference. Is there's such a large organization with lots of employees. That's the definition for me, where it starts to get too many cooks in the kitchen for us to be impactful.
Totally makes sense. So how was your journey? I'm interested both in your personal journey on AI and also more generally as a company. How did you guys sort of come to this as a really, really important moment for how your business was going to work?
Yeah. So personally, I've been in development and franchise development for my whole life in the franchise industry. So basically what that means is I helped grow businesses in multiple different sectors across multiple different countries around the world, as well as in the United States.
Did you get to move abroad, live in any of those countries while you were doing
I traveled a lot. China, London, South America a lot. I've been to 10, 15 countries. It was really fun.
Yeah, I actually lived in Brazil for a year and a half.
Oh, it was Brazil, Sao Paulo. Best meat I've ever had in my life has been in Sao Paulo. Biggest avocados I've ever had in my life was in Sao Paulo.
Do you have a favorite churrascaria in Sao Paulo?
No. I was kind of tagging along with the franchise owner at that time. So I was I didn't speak Portuguese, but it was fun. It was a great country. I preferred Chile. I liked Chile before. And then I also love Valparaiso, and I also love the Punta de Este in Uruguay. Oh, it was beautiful. So all of those countries over there is where I kind of hung out and tried to grow the Faux Concept brand at the time. So my traditional role and expertise is in business development, real estate, right, those kind of things. But I always had a technology bent. And OpenAI came out during Christmas holiday, and 2000 and whatever it was, right? And I was like, this is interesting because I can't not work, so I'm always trying to figure out something to do. And I was like, what is this ChatGPT thing? And what happened, Ravin, is I went from being just a hobbyist to getting kind of pissed off. Like,
Right.
I cannot find a limit to this thing.
It's
And it was like with most software, I can break it, I can hack it, or I can, somehow, self-teach myself. With this one, I was like, I can't make it do something. I can't not make it do something. Like, it was impressing me to the point of like I wanted to break it. And eventually we found out that at that point in time it was doing hallucinations, right?
Right.
But that got me super excited. And so then from there it was just like self-teaching. I taught myself all the software you can think of, from Adobe Suite to all the way down to Excel, right? So this is just another one of those technologies I just learned and became an expert in. And then I got hired at WSI to integrate the AI solutions, and integrate into their offering.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that moment of discovery of the technology, everyone I speak to almost has like a very distinct, powerful recollection of the precise moment when they realize, like, oh, wow, like this is a thing, this is.
Well, the beauty of that, Robin, is every one of our clients has that same aha moment. And actually, to go further into what we do, is that's our goal. Like, we look for, when we do training and operations, to make an aha moment happen or a light bulb moment happen, because
Right.
from there we can say, okay, now that you've had it, now that you get it, now how we can apply that to your role, to your
Right.
workflow, to your business, to your company. Yeah, and so that's kind of I take that learning from my own personal experience, and like I'm looking for that in the eyes of the people in the room, and
Right.
that's how we make impact happen.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. One of the things I always found really interesting about these like aha moments is that I think for a lot of people, it happened very quickly after like November 2022, was it December 22, when the original version of ChatGPT launched. One of the things I find very interesting and sort of surprising about that is that OpenAI really did view that as like a little unimpressive research launch.
Yeah, right.
They weren't expecting the world to be taken by surprise. And we know this because it melted all of their servers for like ages, right? And they were kind of thinking, oh, GPT-4 will come out and that'll be the thing that gives people the aha moment. But amazingly enough, like 3.5 was really all you needed to have that sense of like something very, very important has just happened.
Right, because there's nothing like it at the time. You're going from being a huge Google user and getting your answers in blue links to
Right.
having just the answer right there. And so that was the leap that people were going, wow, this is much better than me having to course through web pages and a bunch of ads, which is a whole nother topic there. But yeah, I think that's where the big unlock happened. It didn't need to be that impressive. It just needed to be better than was currently available. Yeah.
100%. So I think that we almost all have had that experience in our personal lives of like you use ChatGPT or you use Claude or even Perplexity, and you have this like moment of realization that something very important is happening. I think like on the work side, on the enterprise side, and in the SMB market as well, that sort of aha moment of my work is now a different thing than it was, before, has still not really reached everyone, right? And I'm really curious about what you said earlier about how every single one of your clients has this aha moment. So I'd love to understand a little bit more, like, what does that look like? What is it that gets the aha moment
Yeah.
for your customers in like a work setting?
So there's different ways we attack that. So a lot of the time where we've gotten engaged with the client is because they saw myself or our founder, Dan Monahan, speak on the topic.
Nice.
And he's a prolific speaker on AI across the globe and different topics, different organizations. He did the BNI World Conference in Spain last year. And so when we get these opportunities to get in front of leaders and we say, here's an AI use case. Have you seen this? And they go, wow, what the heck are you talking about? And then they rush the podium afterwards with business cards and we go, how do you do this? And so we have that conversation, right? And so they get excited about what they saw as the potential, because we like to position solutions in terms that they can understand how it affects accounting, how it affects marketing, not a SaaS product. I love this phrasing. We're not a hammer in search of a nail.
Right.
We can't take a large SaaS product and be like, okay, we can make Salesforce work for you. No offense to Salesforce, but there's a lot of tweaking that has to be done to typically integrate a product of that size.
Of course.
This is not how we introduce AI to a company. We want to talk to Susie in accounting. We say, what are you doing on a daily basis? Let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm having to deal with this manual entry crap and these two software stack products that don't talk to each other. And then we start realizing that what the solution is a tiny bit of AI and a lot of bit of automation, you know? So anyway, my point is that aha moment is designed to come from that first meeting. And then we do what we call workshops and training, raise the waters for everybody in the organization. And we talk to them individually. We say, how do you use this product? Well, let's start with basic ChatGPT. Take something that you're already an authority in your personal life. Maybe you're a gardener, maybe you're a baker, and say, ask ChatGPT to do something. You already know the answer to it.
Right.
But ask it like you're trying to break it. It's like, make me a recipe for something that's got gluten in it, blah, 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 whatever. And you go, holy crap, that did an amazing job. Now you give that a couple more times, and then they start going, well, I spend 8 hours a day doing this job. I wonder how it can do it here. So we give them the opportunity to make a connection in a personal life and a personal task and a hobby. Right. And then we allow them, and then we do workshops. We give everybody get in a group of 5 or 10, and we kind of do a challenging project, which is kind of fun. Then you build a company, use this AI, see how far you can get. Nice. Ask it the questions, build a company with the AI. And it's really fun to watch their eyes open. And then they take that learning and they go back and we do something called quick wins. And we say, okay, if you still had not had that connection, do me a favor, do a Loom video of one of your tasks that you're doing. There's a 2-minute video of something you're doing that you're frustrated with. I don't know if it's emails, your clients, or spreadsheets that you're dealing with. Just do a video. They send it to us. We send them a solution. Just a way that you can use AI to improve that process. It's nothing big. It's 90 minutes of our time, a GPT or a prompt, something basic, nothing big, just to have them have an unlock, an aha moment. So as you can tell, we do 2 things: training to try to get that aha moment, and then we call them quick wins to try to get them to unlock a possibility.
Really cool. And how do you think about like what kind of users or what kind of like operational use cases make sense? Because I think like one of the things that's really interesting about the story that you tell around like finding these like small quick wins that go along with those aha moments is that I think oftentimes you can find the sort of quick win at a company because there's just so much low hanging fruit that the technology can do. But it then becomes difficult to sort of roll out to the rest of the organization because now you've got change management processes and people can be afraid of adopting new tools and all of this stuff. And, if you're not tackling a big enough, like meaty enough, valuable problem, it can be quite difficult to like spread through the rest of the org with like the small kind of quick win solution. Like, be really curious how you think about,
Yeah, it's very easy answer. Again, we've developed this roadmap through trial and error and through falling on our face, right? And we've realized we have to do what's called a top-down, bottom-up approach.
Got it.
Top-down, we got to get leadership on board. They have to be on the first call and they have to be on the proposal call. Right? Because they're paying the bill, but they're also setting the strategy. If they don't feel like strategy in their organization needs to change in an AI way, then we're never going to get anything done there.
Right.
We'll come to a dead end at one point in time. Okay.
Right.
Then there's the bottom up. No offense to the workers, but it's really the aptitude and attitude of the team. Yep. We want to bring them up a level, right? But here's the thing. We are looking for the AI champion. Every organization has somebody that's tried it, loves it, and wants to raise their hand. And what the best part about it is, just like in the NFL, or if you're in Europe, if you're in the Premier League, right? You're gonna feed your best player. You're gonna give them all the resources. You're gonna give them field time. You're gonna give them trainers, a physical therapist. Right. You want that champion to be fed. Okay, so here's the thing. We identify the champion and we go, hey, would you like to lead this initiative? Talk about a ladder, talk about an opportunity for somebody to grow an organization. It gives them that. But more importantly, we put the onus on them. Your job as the champion is you're going to lead the AI council call that we have every month. It's your job to get the quick wins from the team of your fellow employees. It's your job we have challenges we do for all the employees, challenge them to use AI in some way it's his job to run that meeting. We're there, of course. So that's how we get change happening. We get a champion, and then we get that person to start kind of being the energy and calling on, we create an AI council of other champions as well.
Right.
And just so you know, Ravin, this is not our special sauce. I've heard this from PwC. I've heard it from BSG, and not that we stole it from them because we didn't, but we're all aligned. This is the best way to integrate AI is this. And so everybody's doing the same thing because it's the right way to do it. So yeah, that's how we get change happening is getting people on board, leadership first, champions next.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I'm curious, like, how do you find like a good champion? What makes a great champion that's going to do this job like super well?
Well, I mean, I would say enthusiasm for the technology, but that won't be enough. You
Right.
have to have a little bit of charisma. You have to have the ability to get, initiative, the ability to get things done. And we look for that because they've already built a GPT, right?
Right.
They've already done something with the tech. They took a class and they learned how to do Python just because it was fun. And I will say, not to offend anybody that might be listening, we don't think CIO's IT department is the right department to do this, to own this initiative. We just don't. Maybe because we're in the marketing industry, we firmly believe that the marketing element is so synergistic to adapting new tech. They already saw us as leaders. Our clients already came to us assuming we were experts in AI. They already assumed we were, even before we were. It's like,
Right.
what do you know about this AI stuff? How can you help me? Because we are already doing highly technical advisory with regard to marketing and Google AdWords and this SEO and stuff like that, right? So it's my estimation or my belief that the marketing arm is going to be broadened to encompass AI consulting. That's what we're doing with our brand.
Super, super interesting. I mean, from what we've seen at Credo, I think, it's just there's a big diversity out there. There are some companies where it makes sense for the IT team to own the rollout, and other companies where it doesn't make that much sense. And it's super interesting. I think you just, like, one of the things that you mentioned earlier was just like energy and enthusiasm and like excitement for the technology. And I do think that oftentimes the best predictor, obviously, like you said, you've got to have the charisma and you've got to have the competency, but oftentimes for us, the best predictor of like who's really going to be the big driver and the big sort of game changer for business impacts being realized is just how much enthusiasm there is. We had this one user, a guy called Graham, at one of our early company customers, and it's like a 1,000-person organization. And we were just sort of starting out there in the kind of early pilot phase. And Graham ran the like legal team there, and he built like a little AI assistant using Creedle to answer people's like security questions and privacy questions. So a new customer or a new prospect would come in, they'd have a security question. Graham just like built this one privacy bot, and it would respond to questions. It was really good. The sellers would get an answer in 10 seconds instead of the usual like 2-day wait, right? And then seeing that one success suddenly triggered this like avalanche of like, I want that. Now I want to be able to do that. I want to build my own privacy bot, right? And the next thing you know, there's like hundreds of thousands of these little bots running around. And
And I would say that's a great example, honestly, Ravin. But that's one of the problems I'm finding with AI is that it's kind of like this. I'm not sure if this is how you are, but I can't buy a house unless there's furniture in it. I can't visualize it. I can't visualize, oh, that's the living room. I can see, I have to have it staged.
Yeah.
And people, that's the biggest challenge I'm having with people AI. They can't think good enough. They think in human terms. And this is why I actually advise for the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, Tennessee on their new AI program on the College of Emerging and Collaborative Studies. It's a mouthful. But one of the things I'm hoping to do through these interns is like redefine how you problem solve. Don't look at it through the traditional eye of problem solving. And so some of the older, people, executives, right? Well, mind you, they have a hard time thinking far enough, thinking big enough. They only think in terms of like what is currently been possible and, current frameworks of solution, or maybe even, lean manufacturing terms or something, but you got to think differently. And so that's kind of what we're hoping to change with the people that we work with and even the new people out of college, hoping to change the way they solution and look at problems.
No, I mean, I literally could not agree with that more, Robert. I love the framing. I love the analogies. I think, like, one of the things that's been super interesting for me as well, because obviously we see like a very similar story around, yes, you need the executive leadership buy-in to like ultimately succeed at the contracting level, but the truth is that the technology is so new that even if you're like an expert in what AI can and cannot do today, you are by definition not an expert in what it can or cannot do tomorrow.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Right.
And so really you just need experiments. You need people with their hands on the technology trying crazy things. Like, hey, some of those crazy things might not work, but 2 out of 10 of those crazy things maybe do work. And then maybe 2 of the other things that didn't work last time you tried will work again in 3 months when the next state of the art model, like 6 generations of state of the art.
Or maybe, or equally similar to that problem is you got to be able to, up to like today, Operator came out, and we were building solutions that did similar as a much more robust workaround, no code automation thing to do website usage. Now it can do it with one tool. So now the clients that we build these solutions for, we can reimagine those and make them a little bit more efficient using the new tech. So that's why I highly recommend, most companies, okay, this is the big one here, Robin. Most companies are so entrenched in their service or product offering.
Right.
They don't have time to be experts in AI.
Right.
And that's why we position ourselves as fractional CAIOs for our clients.
Right.
Just like you'd hire legal counsel, we're going to be hired on a retainer as AI counsel. So we can look at their organization through the lens of what we'd heard this week. Oh, you know what? This came out. This will be this problem solution, or the solution to the problem that we talked about 6 months ago is finally got the tech ready for you. So you can't do that if you're so busy running your industry and trying to, get market share, so to speak.
100%. One of the things I'm pretty curious about, so, our customers are typically like, depending on your definition of enterprise, like typically on the enterprise side, like 1,000 plus people employees going up to like 50,000 employees.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things they obviously think about a lot and very carefully and cautiously is like the governance and security and compliance angle, right? And you mentioned the tool Operator, which came out today, right? Which essentially gives a large language model the ability to use your computer, right? And this is OpenAI's version of what Anthropic launched, a few months ago, I think.
Right.
And obviously that comes with a huge amount of governance and compliance and security like questions, right? How do you think about educating your clients? How do you think about advising your clients on how should they think about the security component?
Yeah. So we work with lots of sensitive industries, banking in particular, which is in the US, lots of oversight, lots of regulation, lots of regulators watching everything. You can't pick a SaaS product and just use it in your bank. That isn't how it works. You have to have lots of documentation around whatever you use. You can't, whether it be a HubSpot or something more robust, right?
Right.
So as part of our engagement, what we do with the clients, we have phase one before we even train people. This is an important part of your point here, Ravin, is that we don't want to train an employee and get them all excited about it, and they run and start plugging in a bunch of client data, or what the industry calls in banking PII, personal identifiable information, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
We cannot do that. So what we do before we even train the employees is we do a policy alignment. So we basically do 3 different documents. One has to do with governance, one has to do with policy, one has to do with guardrails. And so what the other way of saying those is how to use AI when handling internal data, how to use AI when handling client data, and how vendors use your data when they're using AI. So you're putting these on the front of the whole engagement. So like, look, here's your safeguards, here's your protections, here's your guardrails, here's how to keep your employees in line, the do's and don'ts. And then now we can start training. Now we can start entertaining vendors on AI because we know the guardrails. Just like having a marketing plan, you have a brand document, how the logo is supposed to behave, same thing, but we just do it for AI.
Totally makes sense. And what do you think the guardrails, like, how do you think people should think about what guardrails they want? Like what's a sensible approach to setting rules and setting guardrails that you're seeing?
I think the important part is to understand the tech.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of misinformation about the technology of language models. There's also understanding about what are you looking to build. There is ways to protect, vectorize your data and protect it behind algorithmic, protections to make it, there's no problems, there's no worries, even if it is PII, right? And so when we build stuff for banks, we put it in that protective bubble, right? But is also best practices. For example, don't upload personal identifiable information into a chat GPT window, not because the language model is training on it necessarily. That's not the concern. Because if I put my password, Robert's password is bubblegum, and then you go and log into chat GPT and ask what's Robert's password, it's not going to know it. That's not how it works, right? It's not storing it on a line item in a database. That's not how large language models work, even if it's training on the data. I know you know this, but OpenAI can be hacked, and they do save the logs of all the interactions. So there's data that is still there. So that's what we train them on. Like, be aware of what it can do and educate them on that. And then, of course, have the best practices. Now, there's also the piece, as you know, that's still waiting to be determined. Copyright, right? You can't trademark stuff generated or copyright stuff generated by AI right now. What is that going to look like? So if your marketing team is putting together this nice slogan and you want to try to trademark that, well, they used AI, so it can't be trademarked. So that's the kind of guardrails we're trying to put them on. Make sure you're not using it for things that are part of the brand identity.
Yeah, 100%. I was hearing from a customer recently about how, one of the developers wanted to experiment with the latest Google Flash model, I think Flash 2.0. And it's sort of interesting because, the models are proliferating, right? And they're proliferating really quickly. And each of them has their own set of governance rules about what they can do with your data. I think if you use the sort of in production Google models, then you get one set of information protection rules. If you use the experimental models, they're actually all free. And so you're not paying a thing for them at this point, but you lose the IP on the data, right? So you're technically sending that data to Google and they can do what they want with it. And so, while you may be educated on one particular tool, you still have to think really carefully about, well, what other tools are people using? How is my data going? Maybe I have my enterprise license with ChatGPT, and so I feel really comfortable there. But now I have to be really, really thoughtful about what happens when people leave my, as you put it, my kind of.
Well, I have a question regarding that. I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on open source versus, OpenAI or Claude or Gemini, and particularly or Mistral or anything like that? Because DeepSeek came out recently, and they're pretty impressive right now. So, what are your thoughts on open source versus closed?
It's really, really cool. I think it's obvious at this point that both open source and closed source models have a really, really important part to play in the industry. I think it's amazing what the DeepSeek team have done, and as a person who lives in America, loves America, it hurts me a little bit to say that. I'm quite a patriotic person about the US, and I came here as an immigrant, and it's been a pretty amazing place. And I came here because it's the most innovative country in the world, or at least that's my perspective. In a way, it's tough to see the US on some dimensions kind of getting beaten in the efficiency of the training that DeepSeek did, at the cost that they were able to achieve a state-of-the-art model at is truly remarkable. And it speaks to the ingenuity that the open source community has been able to generate.
It's a tad scary too. That's because open source, they're open source, and I use Llama, not Llama. Oh, I use Ollama, which is a program on your Mac that allows you to download and use open source models. And I was like, that's pretty fun. In the apocalypse, when there's no internet, I'll have it on my laptop. I'm asking, how do I make a fire with a stick of bread? It's kind of interesting. And the open source allows a lot more, because the guardrails that they put on these models, the RLHF that they're, the trust and safety layer, I should say, they're putting that, not Anthropic, because as Anthropic is more the constitutional AI, but the other models, unlike X, of course, X is model a little more, carefree. And that's the thing, is the open source models allow for a little bit more flexibility, and they might actually they might cream to the top because they don't have so many darn shackles on them,
That is certainly a possibility. And I'm really curious to see where the industry goes. I think so far from what I've seen is that the open source models are often really good at catching up to any given benchmark. You put a benchmark out there, and the open source models will get that benchmark at roughly the same level as the closed source models, pretty quickly.
In short order. Yeah, sure.
In pretty short order. I do think, though, that there is a difference between hitting the benchmark and actually reaching the same level of user delight, right?
Yeah, user. I love that term, user delay. I hate benchmarks. I think they're kind of a fabrication, and you're
Right.
basically you're given the answers to the test, and then see if you can get there. It's not really the great measurement, in my opinion.
Right.
But I do like the idea of what you said is like the users is it satisfying what the users are looking to get out of it? Not that it can, understand a chemistry problem or a math problem, unless that user is a chemist or a mathematician. But
Exactly. And I think like there's a lot of subtle stuff that goes into like the user experience that isn't necessarily always properly captured in the benchmark, context windows, multimodality, personality. Like a lot of the reason Claude has been so popular is just has like a more engaging personality, something that I feel like is more like speaking to me rather than ChatGPT, which candidly can sometimes feel a bit like slop. It's just like AI generated content. It just has this like AI generated hallmark to it.
little bit noticeable, but not exactly. But yeah, I see what you mean.
Right. And it depends on the context. And like some context does amazing. I find like when I'm asking it to write like a blog post, it's just like I just can't get it to sound like a human would sound. And then there are other contexts where obviously it does an incredible job, right? And I use it
But it's funny you say that because I have my tabs open like everybody does, and my first one is ChatGPT, then it's Anthropic, then it's Mistral, then it's Gemini, then it's Perplexity, then it's X.
Wow.
I
Okay.
used to have WordTune, and I used to play with them a little bit, but so I kind of like bounce them around, and sometimes I'll copy and paste the prompt and see which one does better. And it's a quick little hack. I know there's programs that put them in one screen, but they charge money, and it's easy for me just to do tabs. But yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm watching them and watching. That's my benchmark, right? I kind of go up and down, and I'm not sure your opinion, but Gemini is the one that's kind of been flopping for me. They haven't been doing any good. They did it a great workplace, which is kind of neat,
Right.
but I still don't. It's just like Copilot. I don't think it behaves like everybody thinks it's supposed to behave. It's just not quite there yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a lot of it just is that like user experience thought. I was trying to use it recently. I had a flight to California and I was trying to like figure out when the details of my flight were. I opened Gmail. I used the little AI assistant. I was like, when's my flight to California today?
Right.
Like, you don't have a flight to California. And I was like, I do. I do. Here's the like subject title of the email. And then it's like, yeah, I see that you do have a flight to California. Sorry about that.
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, great. Can you tell me what time it is? That's what I asked you originally. And it was like, you don't have a flight to California. And I was like, ah. So yeah,
Making it harder, not easier. Yeah.
exactly. It's like the exact opposite of user delight, like user like enragement, basically.
User engagement. That's a good point. Yeah.
Right. And so that's, I think like taking a step back, like, when you're thinking about which models you want to use and how do you want to like deploy it, I think a lot of it comes down to use case by use case, the right choice is going to be different, right? There are going to be some models that delight your users for one use case and piss them off for another, and other use cases that it's like based on cost, right? We have one customer which has this like huge use case where they drive like 1 million LLM calls a day on like, a fairly significant context window. I think it's like 50,000 tokens on average. And you just can't do that on like O1, right? You're going to be spending millions of dollars a day.
Right.
So they fine-tuned like a llama model to do that like at really, really low cost, but really, really high accuracy. Whereas, in other use cases, fine-tuning it is just going to be like massively over-engineering the problem. And
Well, that's what I like about open source, and that's what I interview suppliers all the time for WSI, and the first question I ask is, so what language model are you using? And you can tell the question they hate it because it's almost like they're lifting up their skirt when I do that, and then it's interesting. Oh, so you're using that model? Interesting. So like I already know the limitations, I already know the cost, so I can kind of backfill into it, right?
Cool.
And this last one I talked to, I won't tell you who that was, and they said they use DeepSeek. I go, oh, interesting.
That is
so it was the first one I talked to that did use an open source model in a long time, so I thought it was pretty interesting. So
that's super interesting. Are you able to share any details of what they were using it for? Like, they have to share the specific details of the customer.
Let me remember which client this was or supplier. Yes, this was a tool that is designed to, without giving too much information, I guess let's say it's used for recruiting.
Interesting.
So it was very much a language model to kind of source different based on the job you're looking to hire, it would
Right.
go on the internet and find profiles, scour them, and then suggest
Really cool.
these 3 candidates fit what you're looking for, and then you would give it feedback, and it would. It's a really brilliant model. Actually, I have a second call with them next week. We're thinking about using them, but my point is, yeah, he uses that language model. I'm like, that to me makes me think, oh, that means my cost is going to be lower. So I hope that's the case, unless they're greedy, you know.
That's awesome. That's like a really, really cool use case. And it's awesome to see. I feel like I've had a lot of hiring use cases recently as well. And it's awesome to see how these use cases are just blowing up. You know, I heard almost nobody talk about recruiting as a use case seriously, like in production, that is. Like, even as recently as 6 months ago, I don't think I knew anyone who had a production.
I'll tell you who it is if you want to reach out.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
them.
I think
They had it pretty buttoned up. It was a pretty impressive product. It's called Noon.ai, so you can look it up. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. We'll definitely check them out. Today, I feel like I see so many of these companies that have shipped really awesome workflows. And
Well, that's another thing I'm also saying, that at first I was getting tired of one use case,
Right.
and these wrapper apps are just getting out of hand. Anybody can build a website. So the first wrapper app, as you know, was chatbots. Have a chatbot for your website. Chatbot here. Everybody gets a chatbot.
Right.
And now, can you probably guess what the new one is that everybody's talking about? It is agents. Everybody's an agent. I can do an agent. You can do an agent. And so it's like, now you don't know how really effective they are about building these agents, and if it's just another wrapper app kind of website. And they're all really good about making a pretty website. I looked at one the other day, and they already had an avatar of a pretty lady and a pretty man, and it was beautiful. But as you know, I feel like this is just temporary until the next tech can surpass it. Operator, you don't need a website to build you an agent, because Operator is an agent.
Right,
So
right.
I think that this is going to be one of those cycles of tech that you got to be really forward thinking. Otherwise, your offering is going to be snowballed and steamrolled.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this works. I mean, one of the things that's cool about OpenAI and Anthropic actually is they just like ship a lot of experimental stuff. A lot of it doesn't work, right? Like candidly, like OpenAI would be quite honest. And I was actually speaking to Sam recently, and he was saying that like, they shipped the GPT store and it didn't work. And he was quite open about it.
Yeah, we know.
And so, maybe the operator stuff specifically is the right solve for this problem. Maybe not. Like, I think we'll find out over the next few months, or maybe longer horizon than that. But clearly it is true that 5 years from now, or like a lot less than that, frankly, in my opinion, these models will be doing stuff in a much more real way. But the exact paradigm through which that happens, is it like that AI is like controlling your browser, or is it like interacting through structured APIs? Like all of that stuff is still TBD.
I think much like I would like to use a parallel here, Ravin. You know how robotics in the robot industry in China is really big in this right now, right? And of course, Elon Musk has got his new version. What do you call it? What's his robot called? Do you remember?
The Optimus, is that right?
Yeah. So you know how they're all humanoid, right?
Yeah.
They're humanoid because they have to interact in a human world.
Right.
And so I think that I take that same parallel, because robots are much more efficient if they could do it whatever the environment is, right?
Right.
But I think that AI tools are going to be built the same way. You have to be able to use a web browser, because that's how the world operates now. And so eventually, when you change the underlying tech, then the AI tools will adapt at that point. But right now, you gotta be able to navigate an OS system, a Microsoft or Apple or whatever. You gotta navigate websites, those kind of things.
Cool. So I think it's 2 more questions before we wrap up. So I think one of the things that our audience often really wonders about is, what are the use cases that you've seen that actually create the most value, right? I think a lot of people have seen use cases where you can save some time doing a task. And obviously it's cool if you can save time doing a task, but the reality is that not every minute saved necessarily translates into more business value at the end of the day, right?
I know you were teeing up a question here, but I have a major pushback on that.
Yeah, great. I want to hear it.
I completely disagree.
Love it.
We have built our business on exactly that. And the reason why it's so impactful is because exactly what you just said. No offense to your offering and who your clients are, but we focus on the little man, because what's happening, that person has been overlooked for decades. They've been overlooked constantly, because every time our product comes out, they don't want to fix Bob in accounting. they want to sell you a big $1,000 a month SaaS product, right? So what we found is when we make these small incremental changes, are you familiar with the theory of constraints? Eli Goldrath.
Yeah.
It's a basic premise that when you have a bottleneck, right, in an organization, in a supply chain, whatever, and you fix it, another bottleneck shows up over here. And so it's a process to slowly but methodically improve an organization, much like lean manufacturing or Six Sigma kind of concepts. But that's why I believe it's the little incremental changes that are much more manageable from a client's perspective, but also huge unlocks that people are often overlooking. Here's an example. Let's say we have a company that's got $5 million in payroll.
Right.
Okay. Our training has proven to us with minor upskilling of their employees, they get about 10% more productivity. 10% of a $5 million payroll is $500,000.
It's crazy.
Now I know that's like, we can't just add that. You can, because that productivity keeps you from hiring the next team as you grow in sales, right? So you save that. Now let's say you want to sell the company. I was a business broker for a while, 6 times EBITDA. Well, that 500,000 goes right to the EBITDA. So that is 500,000 times 6. That's a $3 million addition to your sales price of your business that you just added. So, I mean, I'm throwing numbers out here, but those are true ways to look at the value of small incremental changes.
Nice.
So that's how I would push back a little bit. No offense, but
No, I think that's a great pushback. I mean, I think, a lot of people struggle with this, right? It's like, how do you quantify the value of these time savings? And it's cool to see that. But it's cool to hear that. I think you're seeing success with quantifying it in terms of like, okay, how do we help you scale your business without scaling your operating costs alongside that?
it's a good point there. That's actually a good caveat to my statement. You have to do a cost benefit analysis. We do this all the time with clients. Like if the project costs 50 grand to build, but it saves 20 grand, it's not good. But if it's 50 grand to build and saves 100 grand, well then yeah, why would you not? And that's how that 100 grand you're saving is, ongoing, not just a one time. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, totally makes sense. And I think that's really, really helpful. What are the use cases where you've seen the most, like, the biggest sort of ROI, like the lowest cost to the highest?
So we had a project we just finished. It was, I think it was like 20 grand. So it wasn't a big project, right? And for them it was, and this particular client, they're picking one a quarter, so they're going to do one project for this department, one project for this department. This particular project was, I want to tell you the impact. So the impact, somewhat monetary, but
Right.
somewhat employee satisfaction. We had a very small team delivering a very big deliverable in the accounting department.
Right.
They had to do lots of manual entry. They were dealing with lots of legacy software that they could not adjust, no API access. Like I'm talking AS400 crap, right? Old school software, ain't changing. We have to use it. Sorry. And so they were having to do workarounds. They were experts at workarounds, we called it.
Cool.
And so what we built for them was a way to just take the export of that, and they had to do billing through bill.com, and they wanted to do an integration. And so we built this integration, click of a button. Before it was 7 days of work, 7 days of manually double entry. It was just a painful process. Now you tell me, I know that's incremental. I know it's small, but those 3 ladies in that department, now they're just like, oh, they didn't dread that week of their time every month that had to do this.
Right.
Now they can be redirected. And the thing is, they were already understaffed. So this really freed up a lot of their, what do you call it? Your quality of life.
Right.
It really made them less stressed out. So that right there made them happier as employees, made the organization run smoother and more efficient. And then of course the end client,
Right.
they got a really good, invoice product at the end. So
Right. No, that makes a ton of sense. And I think employee satisfaction is a really, really interesting way to think about that problem. I actually had a really fun experience recently where we do some monitoring for like people mentioning Creedle like on the web. And we started seeing that we were getting a lot of mentions on Glassdoor, which is, a sort of employee kind of review site. And I thought it was kind of strange because we're a startup, right? We don't have that many employees. We have like 10 folks. So getting like all of these mentions on Glassdoor seemed like really strange to me. So I went on Glassdoor to see like, who are these people talking about Creedle? Well, actually, it's the employees of our customers. And they were like, oh, we get to use all these awesome AI tools like, Creedle and, all this other stuff that they love. And actually, like, it was changing their perception of their employer that they have access to AI in a way that like genuinely makes their lives like more effective.
That's a really good connection. And you're basically giving your employees access in training them up. It's like my analogy I always use.
Right.
I say there's a CFO talking to a CEO.
Right.
And the CFO says, "Oh, what if we train them and we give them all this training and they leave us?" And the CEO says, "Well, what if we don't train them and they stay?"
Right.
So what are you doing? I mean, you want to be the one that encourages employees and makes them want to stay and feeds that NFL player, your star player, right? So yeah, I'm definitely in line with that. That makes your organization desirable for your hires, right?
So true. And then I guess the last question to you before we wrap is, if you have one piece of advice to give folks who are responsible for driving AI adoption at their company, right? Maybe it's the director of IT, maybe it's the director of marketing, maybe it's the chief AI officer, right? What words of advice do you have for that person? What's the most important thing for them to take away about how to successfully drive AI adoption at their company?
I think I've kind of said it a couple of times, but I'll say it again. It's baby steps.
Cool.
It's small incremental changes are going to be the biggest impact. Don't look for the hammer in search of a nail. Don't look for the shiny penny. I can't tell you how many times a client will come to me with an idea they had. They had it in a dream. They want to build this tool. I'm like, that's great. I know it sounds really fun and sexy, but you know what? This over here, if we built this for you for half the price, it would be 3 times the impact.
All right.
And like, stop worrying. Stop trying to do something that's going to be fun and neat, but not have the real impact. So start with the incremental changes, look for mass adoption.
Right.
And to the point at which get on the bus or get left behind type of adoption. You want people who are on your team who are adopters, who are using the tech enthusiastically. You're not going to fire anybody,
Right.
but you're not going to promote anybody either that's not on board the new initiative. And when you start kind of putting on those edicts, you're going to start having impact because people are going to be using it enthusiastically, energetically, even without, buying tools. They're going to use your product. They're going to build stuff. They're going to be, this is fun. And then that's what you need to do. Look for across the board implementation, encourage it, do, hackathons, those kind of things. Right.
Right. Yeah, hackathon's been a really, really big one. I think we've seen so many customers discover so many cool use cases by just giving someone a few days to experiment and see if it works. And the next thing you know, you have firstly a small win, and then the small win becomes a big win, and then the big win becomes like a reimagined workplace entirely. So
100%.
on that awesome note, Robert, I think let's wrap. It was really, really fun having you on. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Talk to you soon.